Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Taylor Hiskey. I'm the Director of Marketing Communications here at Trustworthy. We're really excited to have Nat, our founder and CEO, and Kyle Adamo, our Director of Product, here today to walk you through Trustworthy, really hoping that this is a really great way to help you get started. So with that, I will turn it over to Nat and Kyle.
Thanks, Taylor. Hi, folks. Good morning. If you're on the West Coast, hopefully you're enjoying your first cup of coffee like I am. If you're on the East Coast or somewhere else, maybe you're on your second cup. Cheers. Thanks for joining us this morning. It's great to have you with us. Really two parts. We're going to cover just a little bit of why Trustworthy, and then we're going to get into the demo and the tips and tricks. We've got our Director of Product, Kyle Adamo, here, so he knows the product better than anyone. And he's got some great tips and can show you how it works for folks who are getting started. Why are you here? Well, if you're like many of us, you're dealing with this information overload problem. We've now talked to thousands of families and kind of heard the same thing. I've got lots of bits of information. They're in little silos, kind of all over the place. It's all over the place is this phrase we hear. I'm worried I'm going to lose track of something, and I worry that my family, something happened to me, they wouldn't be able to find it all. There's things that I know that they maybe don't know or think they know, but they don't really know. And that amount of information that we all have to deal with and all the related critical tasks is increasingly digital first, digital only, as digital transformation sort of takes hold of society. We've all experienced it. Things used to come in the mailbox. Now they come in your email as an attachment. That's something that we have to deal with that we don't really, until now, we haven't really had systems and to be able to deal with. Turns out that us dealing with this problem has some real costs. The average family spending north of 51 hours a year staying on top of household maintenance and paperwork. The average American family, this number is crazy. Every time I see this number, I can't believe it, but it goes up every year. It's probably going to go up again this year. $1,268, almost $1,300 in these insidious little late fees and penalties and overages and like all the bits and pieces that creep in to your system, the cost to your credit score if you're not on top of things, almost $1,300 a year if you're not sort of organized and prepared and on top of things. That's nuts. That's not even, if you have a problem like, oh, you get pulled over by a policeman without an expired driver's license. That's this whole other thing. Like things that could go awry in your system is not included in this number. So big number, crazy number. 84, the other one is sort of anxiety, the amount of anxiety that people have. We'll touch on this in a second, but like 84% of people reporting anxiety around home organization and upkeep related to mental health. And we looked across the spectrum and said, okay, people have used all kinds of systems to build something for themselves. Almost everyone we have talked to had some kind of system, whether it was a paper-based system or using digital tools. And we looked at those systems and said, okay, they all kind of suffer from the same problems. None of them were purpose-built for families. They all start with a blank page, so you have to create everything from scratch and maintain it yourself. Those systems are largely, almost every single one of them, what we call a dumb container. You put information in, and it doesn't know anything about that information. It can't look at it and say, oh, I understand this, the relationships between these things. Here's how you might improve this system. So there's nothing helping you. Temporal sharing was a really big one we want to solve for. If I share a spreadsheet with you or you share it with your loved ones, you can't say, don't look at rows 25 through 30. I don't want you to see that information yet. Save that until I'm gone. You can't do that in a spreadsheet or document. So that was a really important issue in estate planning and sharing information. Some of them had questionable security. If it's a free tool, or is it really free, or is your information being used for some reason aligned with their business model, and didn't offer much service or support, and just weren't purpose-built for families. So we built the Family Operating System, the safe, easy, modern way to store, access, and share important family information or documents with loved ones and your advisors. We always talk about these two groups that you are probably part of your ecosystem, your partner or spouse, your maybe adult kids or your parents, loved ones, siblings, trustees, guardians, in that inner circle of trust. And then outwardly, the advisors you might work with could be an accountant or a wealth advisor, an estate planning attorney, insurance broker, like on and on through the list of lots of different kinds of folks that we see people add into their systems to have access to some amount of information so they can collaborate together in Trustworthy and have all of that happen in one place. So your accountant might be working with your wealth advisor, for example. That's a thing that happens pretty regularly in Trustworthy. And really the big use cases were, hey, we just want access to our information wherever we are. What's the VIN number to the car? What's my spouse's social security number? Things that you probably can't remember too easily, your driver's license number. Just looking for a bit of information to get something done. I don't want to have to wait to go find that wherever it lives. It's great to have everything in my pocket. Of course, the other big one is if something happens to me, would my family be ready? Or something happens to us, together, would our family be able to pick up the pieces and find the treasure map of things that they need to find? We know from partners who are deep in the state transition space that the average family is spending 18 months uncovering or unpacking an estate from a loved one. And it's like having a second job, right? So we are trying to get ahead of that problem and make life easy for everyone, for heirs, and get in these two use cases, like day-to-day use case. I'm just looking for information. How do I share that with folks who need it? And if something would have happened to me. And then, of course, many of our users are thinking about their parents as well. How do I get my parents to prepare their estate, or my in-laws? Their timeline feels even more urgent than mine. I want them to be better prepared. Maybe there's some health issues or some mental decline, those kinds of things. And then for folks who haven't had time to prepare things ahead of an estate transition, we're working with lots of providers and families after the fact to have Trustworthy be a case where a place where they can collect all that information for probate, for posterity, for family use. That's a real use case that we see. And then this last one that we are wholeheartedly supporters of is this idea of household equity, meaning today what we see happen is this bifurcation of responsibility. Maybe you and your spouse split things up because of so many things. Black box on that side of the house, black box on this side of the house. How do we bring that whole picture together so that everyone knows where to go to find the information at the moment that they need it? So that's a little introduction to Trustworthy and sort of why we built it and what's next. I'm going to hand over to Kyle and let him walk you through the product.
All right, thanks.
Take it away, Kyle.
Yep, I'm gonna share my screen and
I did want to do one more quick housekeeping thing. It looks like maybe the chat might not be working for everybody. So just to let you know that there is a Q&A option at the bottom. There's three little shapes there on the bottom row of your screen. And if you click the three shapes, you should see a Q&A option, and you can submit questions under the Q&A. Again, that little bar at the bottom, three shapes together, perfect. Test question right there. And I will keep track of that and get you guys' questions going. Sorry, Kyle. Thank you.
Thanks, Taylor. So I'm going to take you through a brand new account. I've just created a brand new account in Trustworthy. I've done nothing in this account other than upload a profile picture. We're going to look at the web app and the mobile app as well. We're on iOS and Android. So if you haven't already, go look for the Trustworthy mobile app in the app stores. And what I want to do is sort of take you through the typical way that people get up and running with Trustworthy. Getting organized can often be a chore, but we've got a lot of tools built into Trustworthy to help you get organized quickly. And what I want to start with first is a typical best practice, which is what I suggest people do is add the people and the things in your household before you start adding other stuff. So when I say people, I mean your household members. We'll look at those in a minute through something called Family IDs. I also mean contacts. So we've got a contacts area in Trustworthy. You'll see in your nav, contacts could be businesses and companies that sort of surround your household to help you get things done. Think brokers, think trustees, think family members, emergency contacts. And then as far as things, what I'm talking about is your property. So stuff like homes, vehicles. Start with those things if you can. And then you can start to move into things like insurance or things like finance or things like wills and trusts. The reason I'm saying that is like there's this autopilot feature that we'll look at that'll help connect all the dots between all the things. It's nice if those people and property items like vehicles and homes are already in the system because it can form these connections automatically. I'll show you that in a second. If you're a brand new account, one of the things you're going to see on your dashboard is this getting started cards. I know people want to ignore tutorials all the time. I think it's pretty important to click through on these. These will help you discover some of the key features in Trustworthy and help you take the steps to get started and sort of learn some of the mechanisms in Trustworthy. And what I'm going to do is follow through on a couple of these tasks so you can see how these things work. This very first one, add household members. Essentially what this is going to do is take me on a tour into our Family IDs area. And when I click on Family IDs, you're going to see me. I'm in this account as someone named David Reynolds. But what they're asking you to do is to expand on this footprint of your family members. And what these Family IDs represent are the people within your household whose data you're going to be tracking in this account. Every family is different. It could be two partners. It could be husband, wife, two kids. It could be husband, wife, two kids, and the in-laws. There's a lot of different ways that families can come together. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a quick household here, and then we're going to start filling out the gaps in this household. So what I'm going to do is click on Add New Family Member, and I'm going to put in Reynolds. Okay, and one of the things that we're doing when we add these household members is you can see it's got this note here where it says 16 recommended items. What it's going to do is when we add Laura here, it's going to go create placeholders throughout these other categories in Trustworthy for things that Laura likely has, so that you've got, well, I'll show you in a second just so it starts to make some sense. Let me add a couple other people here. I'm going to do okay. So I've got a couple things in there just to sort of get things going. And when we talk about those recommended items, one thing that I want to point out is if I go into something like this finance category, you can see there's not a blank page here. It's not just like waiting for you to think about the types of things that you should track in here. We're making recommendations based on the data that you put in about your household, their names and their ages, essentially. So we're creating these placeholders. So you've got Laura's savings account, Laura's checking account, David's account, etc. So on every one of these pages, you've got these placeholders that you can click into to fill in the blanks so that it's quicker and easier to get up and running. You don't have to think about the things that you might need to be storing here. We're giving you some inspiration. And you'll see that across the board. Laura's car, David's car, all these ideas of things that can get created automatically.
And Kyle,
Okay.
these are just placeholders, right? I don't have to enter each one of those. I could just say, oh, that thing's not relevant for me, but it's good to have a recommendation. This is why we did it, right? Is to give you something to react to and say, oh yeah, actually I do have one of those, or Laura does have one of those. We didn't want you to start with a blank page. We wanted to give you sort of inspiration or things that we thought made sense for your family based on who's in your family, right?
Exactly. So any one of these there's a couple ways if you want to dismiss something. Let's say you don't have a student loan. Lucky you can just delete from here and say, okay, I don't have that. If it is something that you have, like say a home mortgage, I can come in here and say, you know what, let's continue with this. I'm going to fill out this and it's going to take you through like a wizard flow, or you can connect to Plaid. There's all sorts of different options here, but it'll take you through this wizard. Make sure you fill in all the blanks and get everything set up. Okay, so like Nat said, these are just like inspiration. You don't have to use these. You can delete them. You can remove them, but it helps a lot of people sort of get momentum and get started without being sort of frozen by, okay, here's a blank page. What do I do? Let me come back to my dashboard, and I'm going to work through one of these. Now that I've added my family members, I'm going to do a task that we think explains a lot of the functionality in Trustworthy around when you upload files. There's a lot of like magic that happens when you upload files with this layer called Autopilot, and that's what this add driver's license is going to be. After I go through this, I'm just going to drag a file that I have on my machine, but we're going to talk more about curating files and where you can go to find your files and how to get them into Trustworthy, because there's a lot of different options there. So let's do this. I'm going to click on add your driver's license. Again, it's going to take me into this Family IDs section. And it's going to ask me to open up my Family ID item for me. And now it's going to ask me, go get your driver's license, grab that file, upload it. There's a lot of ways you can get this in here. We'll look at the mobile app in a minute. It's a good way to scan items as well. If you happen to have a digital photo of your license, you can upload it here, and that's what I'm going to do in this case. I'm just going to drag my license in place here because I want to show you something about Autopilot. So I'm going to drag my license here. It's going to drop it in there, and we're going to wait for a moment. And what it's going to do is going to analyze this file, and it's going to try and pull data out of it to fill in all the fields here and help create reminders and things like that. So with a lot of different files that you upload, it's going to look for something called autofills. And what it's doing is analyzing the file, it's reading and understanding and interpreting what it is. And it's going to pull data that is relevant to fill in some of the fields in Trustworthy to sort of expedite things for you. So you can review the items that is pulled in here and say accept all. It fills in this data. If there's anything else that you need to fill in that it didn't get, you can populate that and save it. Okay, the other thing that's key to note here is it has created a reminder for you. So this is very common with ID cards. They'll have an expiry date. So one thing that Trustworthy does with a lot of documents, not just IDs, but it could be term life insurance, it could be vehicle registration, all of those items we're going to analyze, we're going to create reminders for you. When that happens, what's going to happen here is it's going to notify you via email and push email notifications to you well in advance of this thing that's going to expire. So passports, you'll get a bigger lead time than something like a vehicle registration. Excuse me. And we're also working on push notifications. So shortly, in a couple of weeks, you'll be getting push notifications on your device as well. So these tours are always helpful to sort of continue through to see the other things that we can share with you about these. While we're in here, actually, let me do one more thing. We're going to talk about sharing IDs, but I know that during sort of sharing of IDs, let's say I'm doing a refinance and I want to share my ID with a broker temporarily, oftentimes they're going to need the back of your license. You'll see for each of these items, there's a back slot as well. So if you have the back of your ID, you can put it in there as well. Something like a passport, you might not have a back that you want to track there, but on my passport, I have this like card that Border Patrol stapled to it, an L1A visa. I don't know what this card is. Nobody seems to know, but I take a picture of it and I have it there just in case because it's got some numbers and IDs on it. I don't know what they are, but they could be important. So one of the things that we're showing you here is you can click on any of these files to preview. So I'm going to click into preview, and we're also highlighting a feature in here about sharing. And any file within Trustworthy, you can share, and you can share these temporarily. And this is handy for life moments that come up. Let's say it's a mortgage refinance or something like that. Your broker's like, I need a copy of your ID. Typically what you would do in the past before Trustworthy, and I'm guilty of this, I would snap a photo of my ID, I would attach it to an email, and then I would send it to this person who's a stranger, and it would sit in their inbox probably forever. Instead of doing that as an incremental step up in data protection and privacy, one thing that you can do is share this and share it temporarily. So essentially, if you know your broker is working on this now, they're probably doing sort of background check. I can do our credit check. I can do a 1 hour share, grab this link. I can text it to them. I can email it to them. I'll get an email notification when they click the link. When I know that they're done their job, I can manually terminate that link if I want, or I'll know that it's going to expire in 60 minutes or 1 day or whatever you set it to. And you'll also get an email notification when it expires. We did an analysis of some of the inboxes of staff members here. And when I looked at my inbox, I had sent a photo of my driver's license to 6 different people. in my sent items. So in 6 different inboxes out there is a copy of my ID, which is not ideal. So this is just an incremental step forward. So not only can you share IDs in this way, but you can share any type of file. It could be a trust, it could be a will. You could share them sort of temporarily like this. Okay. This is a bit about ID cards, and you can fill these out, and there's a lot of life moments where these are useful. You can search for these, you can access them on mobile. You know, there's times where you're, say, filling out a form online, you need your driver's license number, or maybe you're sort of waiting in line and someone needs a copy of your, or you're at the DMV, they need a copy of your driver's license number and you didn't have it on you, you could pull that up on your mobile phone, which we'll look at in a minute. Okay, so that gives you a sense of some of the some of what that autopilot can do to help you fill things in. But let's take a step back and talk about how do we curate Trustworthy, and how do we get the files that we have and get them into Trustworthy. Typically, when people are getting started, they go through a couple phases. The first phase is find the files, get them into Trustworthy. And then the second phase is like, okay, let's organize these files and fill in all the blanks. So when you're in that phase of like finding files and getting them into Trustworthy, we've got a lot of tools available to you, depending on the type of file or where you're at. Let's say you have files already digital. Maybe they're in some sort of Dropbox or cloud storage, or maybe they're on a hard drive or USB key or on your computer in some way. You could just bulk drag and drop a bunch of files into Trustworthy. And we're going to talk about something called the inbox. The inbox is like a low friction way to just send stuff to Trustworthy, get it secured there while you're in curation mode. And then it's going to do some analysis and give you a head start on when you get into filing mode and organizing mode. It's going to make some suggestions and help you fill out Trustworthy really quickly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just show you drag and drop, and then we'll look at all these other options that can send data into your inbox as like a starting point for getting organized. So let me do this. I'm going to grab, let's say, a passport. Let's do a utility bill. I'm going to do a couple of vehicle registrations. Let me grab some here. So I'm dragging these files. So you can, anywhere in the app, you can open up the inbox, you could drag them there. Or if you're on your dashboard, you can always drop stuff right on your dashboard and it's going to send them into your inbox. And I'll show you what happens when that goes on. So when things land in your inbox, it's going to start analyzing them. You'll see it click in and start analyzing. And I'll talk through some of the findings here in a moment. Oops, I meant to grab a passport. I grabbed the wrong one. Let me grab a passport. I'll delete this one. I didn't want that one. Okay, so here's a couple things that are happening here in the inbox. We analyze the file, and a couple things that happen when we analyze files. You see this badge on it called details, and there'll be a number that tells us how much unique data it's found that it knows and understands. If I click on that, I'll see some of these details that it's pulled out of this this vehicle registration. So it knows what this is. It knows it's a vehicle registration. It's got a lot of data that will follow this file around no matter where you move it. You'll always have access to this like high-level summary data. With every file, it's going to write a summary of what it is, which is like for something like a vehicle registration, not that interesting, but something like a trust or a will, it could summarize a pretty detailed document in a couple paragraphs. We're also going to suggest a better file name for it to help in searchability later. This one's not too bad, but sometimes you'll get files that are called scan from Xerox 2112. You know, that's not a very useful file name. It's gonna analyze the file and suggest a better file name to make it more searchable and more intuitive later. The other thing that happens when we analyze a file is we analyze everything else in Trustworthy to figure out if we've seen this before. Do we already have a spot for this in Trustworthy that I can move it to? Or is this a net new item that I should add into Trustworthy? In this case of the vehicle registration, let's look at this one first. It's saying suggested new property. Let's add it. It's giving you this add action. What that means is it's going to automatically go into my property category. It's going to create a space for this vehicle, and all I'll need to do is move that file to that space. Let me show you how this works. So if I click add, It creates a new page, and what it's done is create a page called new vehicle inside my property category. So here's this blank page. There's a spot for registration, and that's where I want to drag this file to. So when I move the file to registration, check this out. It's got all these autofills where it's like, I extracted all this data from this file. I can fill in everything on this page. It's just giving you a chance to review and accept it. And then it populates the entirety of that file. So not only did it, give us a name and some details, it's found Laura, who is a family member in my family IDs, and it's linked up Laura here. So it's a link to Laura's family ID record. Okay, let's do one more. Let's talk about this one here. This is a new vehicle. That's a Toyota Sienna. Let's say you look at this and something's wrong with this data here. You can actually edit this data if you want at this stage. So let's say the VIN number was wrong. Instead of a 4 here, this was supposed to be a 6. Sometimes your files, if they're like handwritten or crumpled up, or they're weathered or worn or torn, sometimes the analysis of the file misses some things or misinterprets things. You can still edit this data just by clicking edit. And let's say I'm going to change this to a 6 and save. Okay, it's going to sort of reanalyze that file and reprocess things. But in the end, same sort of thing is happening here. It's asking me to add this vehicle. I can say, okay, let's add a new vehicle. I can drag this file over. Okay, and it populates all this data, and I can say accept. I do want to call out these at the top of every page, whether this is on desktop or mobile, you're going to see this, what we call a nickname. If you go to right to the property level where you see all these tiles together, these nicknames are pretty important. This is the first thing that you see about a piece of information. If calling it a 2014 Toyota Sienna isn't meaningful to you, you can change the nickname on anything. Maybe this is internally, you guys call this Vanzilla. Okay, you can call it Vanzilla. You can upload profile pictures to this, so it's got a profile picture of your car instead of just a vehicle logo. Every one of these pages, you can customize that title and the picture on it, which is handy in some spots. Okay, so now Vanzilla is in there. One of the other things that can happen inside your inbox, instead of that add function that you saw where it said, you know what, I've never seen this item before, let's add it. Sometimes something already exists and we know what page you should put the file on. So in this case, it knows David Reynolds already exists as a family member. It's found this passport. Instead of an add function, it's just saying open. It's going to take me over to David's page. And now I can just move this file to, say, the passport front side. And we're going to see those autofills again. It's going to fill in all this detail. It's going to create a reminder. It does that all automatically. While we're in here, I just want to talk about one more thing. And then we'll talk about other ways you can get data in. This one here is utility bill. It knows this bill belongs to a certain home. And that home I had already added into Trustworthy. It's in my property category. So it's saying, okay, you know what, open this home. And I've got this home in here called Reynolds Family Home. It's a profile of my property. One thing I do want to call out on any of these pages, whether it's a vehicle, whether it's a home, whether it's a finance account, there's this idea of additional files. And additional files is where you can dump all sorts of files that relate to this home. But you can also create folders in here. And for things like utility bills, I recommend creating a folder on the fly. So you can do utility bills, and then I can move this file to that folder. Okay, we often see people also create folders like contractor receipts. Okay, it could be receipts for equipment purchases. It could be closing documents for the real estate transaction. You could have your closing disclosure. It could be inspections, things like that. So you can create these
like instruction manuals for things in your home or warranties, really anything that you want to capture about this particular entity. In this case, it's a property, so there's probably lots of little categories like that.
That's exactly it. So I had dragged and dropped a bunch of files into Trustworthy to get into this state to start interacting with the inbox. But there's a lot of different ways. we're going to look at mobile, but first, before we get to mobile, I want to talk about email. When you think about the different surfaces where files are stored, digitally on your computer or some sort of hard drive where you can just drag and drop files into Trustworthy, that's one surface. Email is a huge surface. We did a poll of our clients that was something like 85 to 90% of people had personal household information inside their email. And oftentimes in sort of this emerging digital age, more and more stuff is coming via email. You're not getting paper copies anymore. It's like you're getting your insurance, you're getting statements, you're getting all this stuff sent to you via email. You can actually forward those emails into Trustworthy. There's actually a card on these getting started cards that as you work through these tasks, you'll come across a card called Email to Inbox. If you click on that, it's going to show you an email address that you can send data to. I'm going to copy this, and here's what I'd recommend. Take this email, because it's not one that you're going to remember. It's a really long sort of secure string that's unique to you. What you can do is copy it and go into whatever your contact manager is. I happen to be a Google Contact user, so what I can do is create a contact, and we can call this Trustworthy Inbox, and I'm going to call this June webinar just because I have a lot of inboxes in here. And then I'm going to paste my email and save it. You might be a Apple Contacts user. You might be an Outlook contact user. You can do the same thing. Add this email address to your contacts. That makes it easy for when it's time to forward an email. You just start typing the contact and it'll show up in your email. So let me show you what this means. I've got an email open here. It's an email from an insurance broker, a fictional insurance broker. They've sent me a couple life insurance policies. I want to send these to Trustworthy. I can forward and do inbox, and there's my June webinar one. You can see I've got a bunch of different inboxes going here, and I can just send it. What it's going to do is it's going to strip those attachments out of that email and put them in my inbox. You'll see these snap into view in a minute. A couple of notes about this email to inbox. We are only dealing with the attachments. So if you forward an email to us, if there's no attachment, we're not going to do anything with it. We're dealing with attachments like PDFs or PNGs and things like that. We're not interpreting the body of the email. So if there's anything in the body of the email, we're deleting it. We're just taking the attachments and securing them in your vault. We will be in the future interacting with the more robust version of your email. But for now, we're only dealing with attachments. So when you forward these to Trustworthy, we're just going to grab the attachments. And you can see there's many attachments on that email. We took both of them. You're also going to get an email back to you telling you that this was successful, that we've got your files, or if there was an error in some way, you're going to get an email explaining what the issue was, why we couldn't process them. Taylor, go ahead.
We actually have a couple of questions about this, so wondering if now's a good time to ask them.
Sure.
Pia is asking, does Trustworthy partner with a scanning product app or recommend how to get really clear scans? These look super nice. Mine don't often come out so clear.
Yeah, so there's a couple ways. We'll look at scanning from our mobile app for in a minute, which is great for smaller documents or documents that are like 10 pages or something like that. If you have long legal docs or a lot of docs, we recommend Nat just posted a link in the chat to a ScanSnap, some details about a ScanSnap partnership. ScanSnap is a great scanner that has sort of like an onboard software that you can point to Trustworthy, to your Trustworthy inbox. And it can, as you scan things, you say, I'm scanning this for Trustworthy. It'll scan the item. It'll send it right to your inbox. So those scanners are fantastic. And those are what's been used for a lot of these files, was just to generate the PDFs that we're using. Not every scanner is as awesome as a ScanSnap, but we love the ScanSnap because it's fast, it's pretty affordable, and it's got this capability to send data to Trustworthy.
Awesome. Marianne also asked, do you recommend scanning everything?
If it makes sense to store in Trustworthy, then yes. So a lot of what people do is they'll have like physical copies of things. So there's a lot of ways to think about this. Am I going to need this document to be able to search for it while I'm on the go? I'll need access to it on my phone. Or if a fire came and wiped out everything in my house, am I going to need that document to sort of get my life back on track? Or if I get hit by a bus and someone needs to take over my estate and figure out my life, is that document important? There's certain things that you want to, like if it's, I don't know, a brochure about the Chinese food restaurant down the road. Personally, I would scan it to store that, but you don't need to. Okay, so I think it's like, do you want to scan everything? I default to yes, if it makes sense for like household data, and if it makes sense for those scenarios where I'm going to need it later, I'm going to get hit by a bus, or my house is going to get.
Yeah, I'll just add on this email feature that we're just discussing. I recently sold a home, and you know, when you buy or sell a home, there's a lot of documentation, right? Right from the get go. There's PDFs arriving, things to sign, and one of the best parts of Trustworthy was I asked everyone in that transaction to copy my Trustworthy email onto anything that they were sending us. So that every single PDF that I was being sent was arriving into my Trustworthy inbox. I didn't have to go get it from email or wonder if I'd missed something. It was all just automatically arriving there. It was amazing. So everything related to that transaction is in one of those folders that Carl showed you, and I was able to easily drag every single PDF into that, and get all my closing docs as separate PDFs. So now if I'm looking for something like the title for the home, it's really easy to go find it in Trustworthy. That's one use case. This question about scanning, Kyle, seems like a good bridge to go show the mobile app and the scanning capabilities there.
Yeah. So Marianne, regarding ScanSnap, take a look at the link that Nat posted in the chat. Like, I see that you're asking, can you repeat what you said? ScanSnap is a scanner model from Rico Fujitsu, and it's a really great tool for scanning. It just has this capability that you can point stuff to an email address, and it automatically scans stuff and sends it to that your Trustworthy email. Let's talk about, so you saw those emails come through, same sort of process here. It's analyzed the file. It's telling you, I've never seen this life insurance. You can add it. It's going to create a space inside your insurance category. You can drag it over. It's going to fill in all the blanks for you here. You can accept these, and it creates that whole profile, creates a reminder. So that's one way things can get into Trustworthy. But let's talk about mobile, because mobile is a great tool for scanning items. So if you're digitizing items that are in your filing cabinet, or something new is coming in off the mail, or if you're like me, you had sort of these neatly organized piles throughout the home, those piles of paper, you can scan and digitize them. So I'm logged into my mobile app right now, again, on iOS and Android. Even if you have something like an iPad, you can still install the app on the iPad. It's just going to kind of look like an iPhone when you open it up. We don't have an iPad specific app just yet. So on my desk over here, I've got a vehicle insurance declarations page. This came in off the mail. I'm going to hit, let me see if I got my, yeah, I do have a mouse hooked up to my, so you can see where I'm going to tap. See this plus button down at the bottom? I can tap on that and select scan document, and I can point it at this document. Okay, it's going to snap to that document. If there's another page, I can, take the page off and do the next page, which it looks like it just did. And now I'm going to save, just click my save button here, and it's going to send this into Trustworthy. Okay, you can see it's already snapped into play there, but this is a great way for you to quickly get these files secured into Trustworthy. And the mobile app is sort of a great tool for that. And it's going to do the same sort of analysis on things, where it's going to analyze items. It's going to come up with a suggestion. You can see that I'm working on mobile app, or I'm on the mobile app, but in behind is the web app, and these, both of them sort of snapped into play at the same time. Let me take you through this flow on the mobile app though. So as you scan items, if you know immediately where it's going to go, you can sort of browse through these categories and pick a spot for it, or you can wait for the autopilot to tell you what to do with this. So it's going to come up with a suggestion. In this case, it said, hey, we've never seen this insurance before. You should add it, just like it did on the web. But on mobile, we're not going to be dragging and dropping. We're going to which slot we want things to go into. In this case, it's the policy document area. I'm going to say attach. It's going to drop that file in there, and it'll give me this hint to review these autofills, similar to what we saw on the web when we drag and drop the file. But in this case, it's sort of showing you all the different items. You can review them and update them, and then you can autofill them. And it's going to populate all these details, just like you saw on the web. So I have my provider information. It found my covered drivers. So who are the people who are listed on this? It pulled them out of my family IDs. And it also found a vehicle in my property category. This is a vehicle where we upload the registration card before. So it's linked it up automatically to that vehicle, and it built this whole insurance just by a couple taps. Okay, and what that means is, let me rename this. I'm going to give this a better name. What I like to do on mobile lots is, like, see this mic? Where's my mouse again? There's a microphone icon down at the bottom. I don't know if it's on screen share. You see my keyboard. But if you say Geico Insurance, it takes all the stuff that I just said. So on mobile, you've got this great capability to use the mic. What I like about this is if there's ever a moment where I need to, like, search for something on mobile. So I've brought up my mobile app, and let's say I wanted to search for Geico and I need details about that Geico insurance. I can just search for Geico, find that, or maybe it's a VIN number on my vehicle. I could search for, what was that? My Sienna or Vanzilla, as it were. There's Vanzilla. There's my VIN number. If you're in line at the DMV, this happened to me where they're like, we need the VIN number of your car. And I just waited like 45 minutes to get to the front of the line. And I didn't know the VIN, but I'm like, oh, I have it in Trustworthy, so I can just search it and pull it up. So that's like a real crash course on mobile, but mobile's great for scanning, and it's great for finding things on the go and keeping your data up to date as things change. Let's talk about one more way to get data into Trustworthy. This is less used, but still pretty powerful. And you'll come across it in our getting started things as well. I've already done this step, but there's this thing called install Chrome extension. Chrome extension is something that works in your Google Chrome browser, and it sort of expands on things that it integrates with Trustworthy and expands on things that you can do with the app by using this Chrome extension. There's certain scenarios where you might find the Chrome extension useful. One is it will help you to pull data out of emails. When you have the extension open, if you're browsing your emails and there's files on them, it can extract those files and send them to Trustworthy. We already looked at forwarding emails via this email to inbox feature, but sometimes if you're browsing a number of things at once, you don't want to go through this forwarding function. You can download those files using the extension and send them right to the inbox, or send it right to an area if you know where it needs to go. I'm just going to grab this. I happen to be looking at an email. I'm going to save this to my inbox. Okay, so it can sort of scrape these attachments out of your emails as you're browsing through. The other thing it can do is, let's say it's a scenario where you have filled out something online and there's like a confirmation page. Sometimes that confirmation page is not an email. There's no attachment. There's nothing for Trustworthy to do, but you can use the extension to grab a screenshot of this and send it to Trustworthy. There's certain times, like I've seen people use like someone's measurements, like a person's measurements for if they're getting something tailored or they need to buy clothes. What are their measurements? And there's a screenshot where you've configured that. You can grab those and send them to Trustworthy. In this example, it's a medical claim submission. I filled out a form online. I submitted it, put up this page. I wasn't sure if I was going to get an email confirmation, but just in case, let me grab a screenshot. You can use the extension to do that. It grabs a screenshot. You can save, if you know that it needs to go into an insurance category, you can browse to your medical insurance if it's in there, or if you don't know where it wants to go, where it needs to go, just send it to your inbox and deal with it later. Okay, and you'll see those things now. There's that trust that I pulled out of my email with this extension, and then it's also grabbed that screenshot as well. Okay, one other thing I want to mention that's pretty important in here, when I talked about early on getting people into Trustworthy, we talked about the household members through Family IDs, but there's also this idea of contacts, which I want to touch on. So contacts can be linked to anything in Trustworthy, and there's various ways that you can get contacts into your Trustworthy. One way is through your mobile phone. And the reason we want to get contacts in there is there's a lot of options for inviting these contacts as collaborators, which we'll look at in a moment. And there's also this idea of like building the full view of something, whether it be a property and knowing who all your utility companies are, or having a trust in there and knowing who all your trustees are and beneficiaries are. You can create all those people inside Trustworthy as contacts. So let me do this. I'm going to go to my browse category on mobile. I'm going to go into contacts. I'm going to say add my first contact, and I'm going to say import from device. After accepting various permissions, you can select specific contacts in here. You can search for contacts, get them into your system. But you get the idea is you can do that and you can import those contacts. There's another way that you can get contacts into your system. One is through your contact manager. So let's say you use Google Contacts and you have a subset of people that you want to, sorry, let me search for. If you want to export a contact, or you can export multiple contacts at once just by, clicking on a bunch of people and then doing export. And what you want to do is look for a format called vCard, and you can export this vCard and then you can import it into Trustworthy, and it's going to process all these different contacts in your system.
Contacts could be really anyone that you need to stay in touch with, or that you might want to tell your family about, like, hey, this is the person that we work with on the investment portfolio. Maybe they don't know that. Or this is our estate planning attorney, or this is the gardener for the second home kind of thing. Could be anyone, right? These are just folks that you might want to connect to a tile or an entity as a sort of, this is an important contact related to this particular thing. And these, I think the distinction is these folks are not collaborators, not automatically collaborators. They're just people that you need to know about, or that your family might need to know about if they're doing some kind of recovery.
Yeah, exactly. And we can look at that a bit in a second, but let's talk about collaborators, because it's an important part of it. There's various types of, let me close some of the things I have open here. There's various types of people that you can invite into Trustworthy to have some level of access to your data. It's very common. In many cases, our account holders will invite a spouse or a most trusted loved one into Trustworthy. That happens almost all the time. But you can also invite other people who might be professionals that you work with, advisors, let's say, things like CPAs or tax consultants or estate planners or trustees and things like that. You can invite these people into Trustworthy and really control their permissions of how they access the system. One sort of pro tip, I guess, is a lot of people, when they think about inviting others into their account, they have this hang up where they're like, I want to get it all perfect. I want to organize everything, get it all perfect before I invite my spouse or my partner or my CPA. Don't do that. Invite people early and often. They can help you get organized. I know in my household, my wife had sort of our knowledge of household data was sort of bifurcated. She knew stuff about bank accounts and insurance policies that she had before we got together. I knew, stuff related to mine. She knew stuff about the kids. I knew stuff about other bank accounts. So get those people in, invite them in. They can really help you get up and running and with Trustworthy very quickly. So let's talk about inviting a collaborator. There's a card on your getting started. We know this is important. We're going to point you to what to do here to invite a collaborator. So you can click on invite here to invite this person into Trustworthy. And there's a couple things that happen here is we're going to surface people who already exist in Trustworthy to recommend that you invite them. These could be, in this case, Laura's in here. She's my wife. or you've got other contacts in here, you can invite them, or you can add someone new who might not be in your system yet. Let's do Laura, and I'm going to do I just want to show you the next step here, which is setting permissions. So here's a couple options that you have for people. Full access is typical with a spouse or most trusted loved one, someone who's going to have access to everything. Sometimes people have like a personal assistant. They give that person access to everything. That's an easy permission for someone, but it's very broad. They can see everything that's in there now and everything that you add later. Partial access is where we get really granular. Partial access is something you would use for, let's say it's your adult children who are away at college. You might want to invite them, but not share everything with them, just like certain things that they need. Or if it's someone like an advisor or a CPA, maybe they get access to just your finance category and just your taxes category. So you can get really granular on this like category level, or you can go even deeper. Let's say you're inviting a business partner, and you only want them to have access to, a certain, actually I have no businesses in here. You only want them to have access to certain things. Like you can go into each of these and say, you know what, only give them access to the Reynolds Family Home and Vanzilla. Those items within there, you can get really granular, the entire property level, or items within property, the entire finance level, or specific items within finance. Okay, and there's different use cases for those. For someone like a business partner, you would just give them access to a single business. Someone like a property manager, just access to a single property or the properties that they run for you. Someone who's a CPA, maybe all of your finance category. Okay.
I invited my accountant to my taxes category, and it's amazing. He loves it, and he was able to upload all my past tax returns, which he's ecstatic about, because every time I would try and do a transaction or something, I would be like, "Hey, Juan, where's my tax return from this year?" And now he can say, "Oh, it's in your Trustworthy. I don't have to go find it for you every time you need it." And the other side is I collect all the sort of flotsam and jetsam that accumulates through the year related to taxes. It goes right into Trustworthy. When I'm ready to file taxes, I just say, "Juan, it's all in this folder for this tax year." He can just go grab it, go file my taxes, put the completed tax returns back into Trustworthy because he has that access in that category. It's a beautiful thing. And he, like I said, he likes it because then he doesn't have to give me tax returns every time I ask for them.
I just backtrack to sort of this permission, this select access area, just to point out this last option called legacy access. So legacy access is designating someone in your life who doesn't have access to your data now, but who could have access later if something, God forbid, happened to you, right? So this is someone who you might want to get elevated access to help settle your estate. If something were to happen to you or you're incapacitated, you can designate these legacy access people. They will get an invite, but they won't get access to Trustworthy now. They'll sort of verify who they are and that they're reachable. And then that sort of expedites things if they had to reach out and say, you know what, David Reynolds has passed on. They can provide evidence of such. Those will be vetted by our experts. We'll put them through identity verification, and then there'll be a cooling off period where we talk to some of the other collaborators in the system, and then we can grant access to them. So legacy access is pretty important. I believe, Trustworthy is not a great end of life estate settlement solution if nobody knows your data is there. So make sure people know that your data is there by inviting them as collaborators or inviting them as legacy access. Okay, so that people know that there's a solution out there. If I pass away, how can I help settle that estate? That's what legacy access is.
Carl, just to recap, because we got a question, there's basically 3 levels of access. So full access means you have a collaborator who can see everything. Partial access is you're defining the access at a category or tile level, and so they can see that and collaborate with you today. And then that last one, legacy access, is they can't see anything today, but they know where to go if something goes awry to unlock your account and have access to everything. You can mix and match those a little bit. You could do legacy and partial. People can be both, like, oh, I only have access to this category, this tile today, but if something were to happen, I can unlock everything else. Hopefully that answers the question that we just got.
So great note from Pia there, as a ConMarine consultant. So I know we're short on time. This is sort of the nuts and bolts of Trustworthy. Make sure you get your mobile apps. Make sure you invite collaborators. Make sure you work with those different tools to help you get data into Trustworthy, whether it's forwarding emails, get your email to inbox contact set up so it's easy to forward stuff through. Get your mobile app, get familiar with the scanner and how to scan single page and multi-page documents, and experiment with the autopilot that helps sort of organize things here. It can really help you populate things very quickly. Here's a trust, which is a very complicated item, and I can basically drag and drop that, click accept. It fills in a lot of stuff for me automatically here. Okay, so this is a bit about Trustworthy. Let's see if there's any other questions before we drop off.
There's one more question from Marianne about investments and where do I put my K1s?
That is a good question. Where do you put your K1s now?
It could be in the finance section, but it's more likely to be in the business section. It's depending on what the K1s relate to, if they're investments of yours, and you're getting those statements. You could also put them in the taxes, or in the taxes category. Venture funds, yeah. I tend to create so these are investments that I've made, for example, that my spouse doesn't. She knows about, but she doesn't know the details of, like, where they live, essentially. So I've created in the finance category tiles for each of those investments, so that, you know, if something would happen to me, she could go find them and unpack them. But you may also include those in the taxes category if there are tax implications. But for just keeping track of those kinds of investments, I've put them in the finance category. You can just hit that plus button at the top, create a tile, describe what it is, add the related documents, and then you have, you know, it's present. It has a space, if you like. So Kyle, you can see we have a fairly flexible system and allowing for different kinds of things. Kyle, if you just go back to the dashboard, a lot of what we've covered today is in this getting started section. If you haven't had a chance to look at that yet, that's a great place to sort of go from 0 to 60 very quickly with Trustworthy. But of course, if you have questions, you can always email a support team using this little widget at the bottom. You can start a conversation there, or just email support@trustworthy.com. The folks there are really helpful and would love to answer your questions.
And also check out help.trustworthy.com. It's also a good resource for self-serving and looking at some of the knowledge bases. There'll be videos and etc. in there to sort of guide you through a lot of the stuff that we talked about today.
Thank you, Kyle and Nat. Really appreciate your time. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. And we will see you next time.